input, and there is going to be a time for an output.
That's right.
There is a season in your life where you ought to spend in sowing.
That's right.
Expecting that a season will come when you will spend reaping that which you sow.
That's right.
So these are very important things. I know we read it in the Bible and sometimes you cross over it and it doesn't seem as profound, but we want to highlight that importance at the beginning of the year. Many of us are in a season in our life right now where we ought to be sowing.
That's right.
We've come to the beginning of the year, and this is the time where we make plans with expectations that something will come from those plans. We're not making empty plans. We're not writing resolutions down and saying what will be, will be.
Right.
I hope that's not the case. We're not just writing things down. We're not just creating things or imagining things and saying, well, whatsoever happens will happen. But no, we're making constructive plans, but also sowing seeds.
That's right.
Preparing ourselves for a harvest that will come from those plans that we're making.
That's right.
So it's very important that our mindset is in that place at the beginning of the year. Otherwise, you will get to the middle of the year and realize nothing has been accomplished. You get to the end of the year and look back, and the entire 2023 would have gone by and it would have been for waste.
That's right.
We don't want to get to a place where you start blaming everything around you, blaming God, blaming your family, blaming your friends, blaming everyone because you neglected a simple principle: seed time and harvest.
That's right.
There is a time to sow and there is a time to reap.
That's right.
So we talked about all of that. I just wanted to, to kind of give us a refresher of what we talked about, a rundown of what we talked about. We talked about all of that last week. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that today. Today I really wanted to talk to us about what we need to be sowing.
That's right.
At the beginning of this year. I know that a lot of us are already sowing some very important seeds, and when we talk about sowing, one of the things that we forget is that when you're sowing, there is precision in what you sow, so that there's also precision in what you expect to reap. We forget and we just think, oh, seed time just means, oh, there's a season where you plant. But what are you planting? What are you sowing? What are you investing your time doing at the beginning of the year so that what comes out at the end of the year is what you expected? So we want to talk a little bit about what we're sowing in this first months of the year, so that what we expect at the end of the year is what we intended for. Not anything. You don't want to plan one thing and have another thing. We don't want to plan something and expect something else.
Right.
So we need to talk seriously about what we are sowing in at the beginning of the year. One of the most important things that I would expect or anticipate that everyone is doing at the beginning of this year is giving your first fruit to God in prayer.
That's right.
And it's very, very crucial that we're doing that, because I think a lot of us at the beginning of the year, most churches do this. They set up a fasting and praying program, and you fast for the first 30 days, the first 21 days, the first 12 days, however that your ministry is doing it. And a lot of us take that for granted. A lot of us, we go through it. It's just another casual thing that we do. It's just another religious exercise that we do. There's nothing serious about it. There's no commitment. There's no dedication. There's no expectation.
That's right.
It says God cannot be mocked.
That's right.
In other words, even in your planting season, if you have no expectations, if you're not putting any solid seeds in the ground, do not expect that when it comes harvest time, you will get something.
That's right.
God cannot be mocked. So in this time where churches are setting time aside and saying, let's fast and pray, let's plant a seed of prayer. Let's plant a seed that will give us that grace, that will enable us to pray for the rest of the year without ceasing.
That's right.
If you cannot discipline yourself to go through with that first month, I'm talking about prayer now.
Yep.
If you cannot discipline yourself to go through that first month, it is very hard to believe that you've planted a seed of prayer that will sustain you for the rest of the year.
That's right.
There's so many things that come from prayer. When we talk about prayer, we're talking about communication, we're talking about asking, we're talking about a relationship with God.
That's right.
We're talking about building intimacy with God. That is what prayer is. And that is a seed that you're sowing at the beginning of the year. That is the most significant, because the rewards that come from it are endless.
That's right.
I cannot talk about sowing seeds in your career. I cannot talk about sowing seeds in your business. I cannot talk about sowing seeds in your family. Whatever it is that you're thinking, those plans that you wrote down, it's impossible to talk about them without anchoring them with prayer.
That's right.
Because it is with prayer that you're able to accomplish all of that. It is with prayer that you get the grace, the sustenance, the discipline, the dedication, the commitment, the strength, their capacity and ability to accomplish all other plans that you have.
That's right.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you.
That's right.
So the primary seed that we ought to be sowing at the beginning of this year is prayer. Asking God for a grace to really persist in prayer.
That's right.
To truly pray without ceasing. A lot of us don't have it in us. We just don't have the capacity to push, to press in prayer. The first 5 days you're in, the next 15, 20 days you're out. It becomes a religious exercise, like you said. We're not committed. We're not asking God for anything. A lot of the seeds, if we're spiritual people, that we sow them in the vineyard of God. In his ears we speak our plans, and God hears them, and then he goes before us and sets the stage and paves the way so that we can accomplish those plans.
That's right.
So outside of that, I don't know how else you could be sowing your seeds. We really have to obtain the grace to pray, to press in this year.
That's right.
Doing so at the very beginning of your year is crucial.
That's right.
It sets the stage for the rest of the year. Think about those friends that you have in your life who only call you when they need something. Think about the feeling you have about that. Think about how repulsive it is to you. Think about how obnoxious you feel when friends only call you when they need something. We have to cultivate a habit of building intimacy with God, committing in prayer, consistency in prayer, so that we're not only calling on God when we need something. God is merciful. He will answer. But again, it's something to be frowned upon if you're only going to call upon God when you need something.
That's right.
I'm asking us to set a stage in our life where we're not only going to God when we need something, but we have a relationship with God where he can speak to us.
That's right.
So even before you ask, it has been answered.
That's right.
Even before you seek, God is already showing you and leading you in the right direction. So you don't have to find yourself consistently asking and only coming when you need to ask for something. You don't have to be a burden. That's how I think of people who only call when they need something. You know, they forget about you the whole year. They go about their whole year doing everything. And it comes a moment where something happens in their life and they need something. And that's where they think, oh, let me call Derek.
That's right.
Let me call the evangelist for something. When you call, when that person calls, the reaction and the emotion is very different from a person who's consistently called on you throughout the